Think the endless yellow hallways are scary? Wait until you drop into the Christmas room scene in Backrooms. This mind-bending sequence leaves audiences with a mountain of questions. Why are the creepy still lifes, Barbara and Archibald, sitting in the dark, only to be relocated to the kitchen scene later? Did Clark masterfully domesticate these monsters? Or was he just a pawn in his own psychological purgatory? Don't move, stay still, and let's find out. When director Kane Parsons brought the possibly infinite, yellow-lit maze of the complex to the big screen, fans expected the usual liminal space horror. Instead, we got a deep dive into the messy, broken mind of our main character, Clark. Played with a great sense of desperate malice by Chiwetel Ejiofor, Clark is a failed architect running a struggling discount furniture store. His life is completely falling apart due to heavy drinking, a failed career, and a toxic marriage that ended in a bitter divorce. In the movie, The Christmas Tree Room is a physical rerun of Clark's family failures and holiday trauma. For families dealing with severe alcoholism, holidays are like ticking time bombs that make every argument way worse. This red-lit room represents a twisted, broken memory of a horrible Christmas Clark spent with his ex-wife, Barbara, right before they got divorced. The real horror comes from the charred, mannequin-like bodies fused right into the carpet around the tree. These creepy figures are a visual metaphor for the collateral damage of Clark's alcohol-fueled rage during those ruined family holidays, representing the permanent emotional wreckage of the people he hurt along the way. But there is more to it than just personal drama. The Christmas Tree Room is also a direct shout-out to classic literature, specifically the lowest circle of hell in Dante's Inferno. In Dante's poem, the ninth circle is a frozen lake called Cocytus, where the worst sinners are stuck half frozen in ice as punishment for their treachery. Kane Parsons adapts this for the Backrooms by showing the mannequin figures trapped half submerged in the floor tiles, all bathed in that hellish red light. Clark fits the bill of a classic betrayer. He gave up on his dreams, he treated his family terribly, and he got his loyal employees killed because of his selfish obsession with navigating the complex. Falling into this room means he has literally entered a hell made just for him. Inside this creepy holiday room, Clark meets two of the movie's most terrifying monsters, known collectively as the still lifes. First up is the red-headed still life, played by Rhiannon Roberts, which is a twisted copy of Clark's ex-wife, Barbara. When she stumbles out of the dark groaning, she is clutching her head. This posture does double duty in the lore. First, it looks exactly like a domestic abuse victim ducking away from a hit, showing that Clark was physically violent during their marriage. Second, because time inside the complex is totally broken and non-linear, it acts as a temporal scar. She is holding her head because, in the movie's twisted timeline, Clark has already violently scalped her in a scene that happens later in the film. Sharing the room is Archibald Leland Sutter. Archibald represents a different part of Clark's broken mind. A low-quality human copy whose lower body is fused directly into a three-legged wheelchair and a working floor lamp. Archibald symbolizes Clark's feeling of being totally stuck in his career, immobilized and deeply ashamed that he has basically become a piece of useless discount furniture himself. This brings us to the big mystery of the third act. How did these two creepy monsters end up sitting at a dinner table in a totally different part of the maze? Did Clark move them, or was he dragged there? The movie makes it clear that Clark was not dragged at all. According to rumors, he actually rounded them up and moved them himself over several weeks. When Clark first ran into the red-headed still life and Archibald, they were violent and totally unpredictable. But by staying down there, Clark figured out how to exploit the weird rules of the complex to domesticate them. He did this using three main tricks, starting with the number one survival rule of the Backrooms. Don't move, stay still. Running away or showing fear triggers the twitchy, predatory instincts of the still lifes, making them attack. Clark realized that if he stayed completely calm and quiet, the monsters would mirror him and freeze up. He used this exact trick when he kidnapped his therapist, Dr. Mary Klein, tying and gagging her at the dinner table to force her to stay completely still so she wouldn't trigger a violent reaction from his creepy new guests. It's worth noting an interesting Reddit fan theory. According to this theory, he found a weird plant called wall lettuce growing in the damp corners of the maze, which oozes a thick, milky liquid that acts as a sedative. Since Clark didn't have any actual alcohol to deal with his severe withdrawal symptoms, he harvested this milk to drug the still lifes, making them completely cooperative for his big dinner. Other theories as to where the milk came from include, well, he brought it into the Backrooms from the outside. And second, and way more gross, he squeezed the still life stuffing into a glass, harvesting its juices. The final tool in his box was his mental connection to an entity called Captain Clark, played by the giant Robert Bobrotsky. This massive, peg-legged monster wears the exact pirate costume Clark used for his embarrassing local TV commercials.
I am a fucking architect!
Since this creature is a physical version of Clark's self-hatred and inner rage, it has total authority over the regular still lifes, who are absolutely petrified of it. By leaning into his worst inner monster, Clark acted like a tyrant, using the threat of the pirate to herd the lesser monsters right into the dining room. So, why did Clark move these terrifying things to a rebuilt kitchen deep in the maze? It all goes back to his refusal to face his own failures. The real-world collapse of Clark's marriage happened during a nasty, drunken midnight fight in their kitchen, which started when Clark came home wasted and accidentally broke a glass. By physically rebuilding that exact kitchen inside the backrooms and putting the still lifes around the table, Clark is trying to rewrite history. Inside the maze, he gets to be the undisputed boss and the successful architect of his own home, totally hidden from the judgments of the real world. Since the still lifes are just silent, hollow copies, they act like literal furniture. They can't talk back, argue with his excuses, or leave him like his real wife did. To make the illusion complete, Clark does some truly horrific stuff during the dinner scene that completely terrifies the captured Mary Klein. Clark takes a kitchen knife, slices the scalp right off the red-headed still life, and puts the red hair onto Mary's head like a messed up wig, demanding she act like Barbara and give him therapy. He even treats another monster at the table, the bearded still life, played by Patrick Bainham, like a literal prop made of food, cutting into its stomach to show Mary that these things don't feel pain and can be eaten to survive. This incredibly bizarre moment connects directly to director Kane Parsons' concept called the scale of edibility, which answers how humans can survive in a sterile world with no normal food. Parsons explained that since the Backrooms doesn't understand biology, it just copies the idea of eating. Eating them like a cannibal shows Clark's extreme narcissism. He physically and mentally consumes the people around him just to feed his own ego and survival. Outside of the story, director Kane Parsons revealed that this entire sequence is actually a massive critique of generative artificial intelligence. Parsons is a major critic of AI in creative fields, and he specifically designed the creepy look of the still lifes to mimic the glitchy, soulless distortions you see in early AI art. With their twisted, multiplied faces, weird eyes, and missing body parts, the still lifes show what happens when human memory is processed by a cold, unfeeling machine. To Parsons, the horror of the Backrooms is exactly the same as the horror of AI. It is just an algorithm that has never felt real human emotion trying to copy our closest memories, relationships, and even homes. The resulting monsters are just hollow, creepy parodies of us, which is basically a big warning against automated tech. The tragic ending happens when Dr. Mary Klein refuses to play along with Clark's delusions. Instead of being the quiet, submissive wife Clark wants her to be, she goes off on him, pointing out that his heavy drinking, domestic abuse, and total refusal to take blame are the exact reasons his life and marriage fell apart. This reality check completely breaks Clark's mental stability. Because the complex acts as a physical feedback loop for his mind, breaking his delusion causes the whole room to instantly glitch out and destabilize. The massive Captain Clark monster, which had left Clark alone because Clark saw himself as an innocent victim, suddenly turns on him. Spotting Clark's sudden guilt and self-awareness, the pirate doppelganger attacks and brutally eats him off screen, marking a literal and symbolic act of self-destruction. In the end, the unforgettable Christmas tree room and the twisted kitchen dinner prove that the Backrooms are much more than a physical trap. They are a brutal psychological mirror. By running away into a world built out of his own toxic memories, Clark didn't find an escape. He just built a massive monument to his own failures, proving that if you hide from reality, you will eventually be eaten alive by the very illusions you created to save your own ego.